So hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and we've got a second interview, one of my favorite guests, and actually after a huge response from the last interview that we did with Peter, where he shared about how he's built a $4 million Amazon KDP business. I knew I had to bring him back anyway, and since then he's continued to grow his business and scale it even more. So we're going to delve deep into his strategies, systems, and insights that actually helped him grow even further, and it'll let us know what's working right now in 2026. So welcome, Peter. Great to have you.
Thank you very much, Danny. It's great to be here again.
Definitely. So we'll start off with the first question. So since our last interview, I have seen that you've now crossed the $5 million mark. What would you say has been the biggest changes or decisions that have kind of helped you make that leap?
I think in my case, it's not necessarily a change. It's more so about continuing to do the brand, so build the brand, continue to have the systems running, and constant improvement. So that's one of the big benefits is when you build a brand. I think I've told this before, but in the beginning, the brand wasn't the thing that was bringing the most profit. It wasn't the money maker, you could say. But with time, when you build the email list, you create the series of books, people start buying more of your books, so not just one, and then you never get anything else, or you don't have any way to contact that customer. So that compound effect really starts to pick up after a while. And I think it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, that's when really the brand started doing more than picking these individual niches and aiming to win in that regard. So I would say it's more so about, at this point, just keeping the system running, producing quality books. And of course, something I'm always aiming to is to analyze the data. So look at what I've already done and aim to course correct, because even within the brand, there are certain books that do better. Why are they doing better? What am I doing on those books? How am I selecting the niches? So on and so forth. So it's always about finding the 20% that produce 80% of the results. So to conclude, I would say the lesson is to find what is working for you, and then to scale that, ideally build a brand, and then build a system that you can continue to improve.
Okay, and you've talked about a system as well. So what does your current publishing system, what does it actually look like from initial idea all the way to when you're launching?
So I have writers right now. We had paused the writers because we had so many manuscripts built up. But I think that the key role in my system is the editor, and she's also the expert in the topic I publish books in. So she's the one that really ensures the quality and handles everything, including the contact with the readers. If anything needs to be updated, she's the one updating it in the book. So I would say she has a key role, and having someone that you can trust that can do things for you in that regard, I think, is key. And other than that, I have a manager who handles the day-to-day operations as well. So when it comes to the system, it's primarily finding the people. And now with the changes with AI, I think we will dive into that later, is you can have AI be the manager for you in many cases. In many cases. So I think that's a big change, where now instead of going to Upwork, hiring a manager, maybe you can set it up with, let's say, Claude Cowork or Claude Code. You can build a system like that. So but that's the general system is of course, it follows the same streamlined process as always. It's selecting the niche, finding the angle, doing research on the outline, producing the manuscript, the descriptions, the covers, and then formatting, and then ultimately publishing and marketing. But the big change is AI, I would say.
Okay. And also on the research that you're doing now, has your niche research kind of changed from what you're doing now to, let's say, maybe a lot early on in your journey? What would be kind of the main difference on what you kind of look for now?
I would say in some cases, I aim to look for niches that have more potential. So in the beginning, I think it's good to not go in too competitive niches, but once you start gaining experiences, you can compete in these higher demand niches where there's also higher competition, because you're able to find these patterns within niches that allows you to create a blue ocean where there isn't much competition just with that specific angle. So I would say in terms of niche research, that's one change, but I would also say that I'm validating more. I'm using AI to really ensure that the numbers are making sense. I think that going back, if I were to make something different, it would be to produce fewer books, to publish fewer books, and just really make sure that when I create a book, the niche is on point, and I also have something unique, something that will provide something different to the market and give the readers a reason to choose my book.
Okay. And yeah, I really like that point on validating niches. I feel like that's one of the biggest things that most, self-publishers, they don't do at all. They just try to jump into a niche and they don't really think about, market research. They don't really think about if there is demand. They don't really think about actually doing something different from, all the other publishers in the niche. You talked about the blue ocean strategy. So I think those are several things that people really need to be doing if they really want to, find success. I also know that Amazon ads were also kind of a big part of your strategy too. How have you been able to kind of keep on optimizing them and scale further?
I would say a big thing that we started doing was lottery ads. So, for example, having 100 to 300 different keywords and then putting out several books, perhaps in a similar series, and then seeing what works. And then if we have certain search terms that are doing well, we can take those, we can place those in a separate campaign with exact match, and then we can have a higher bid and we can scale that way. So I would say that is one big change. Video ads was something I started doing heavily in 2025. It's also something that is working well. I would be a little bit careful going high bids on video ads. So, but you can also do the same process there, have low bids, do more of a lottery ad style. And then in terms of optimization, looking at the 30-day window, I would say is better than looking at the lifetime, because if you look at the lifetime, maybe you will remove winners because you're not seeing the full picture of what's happening right now.
Okay. So ideally, on any particular book that you have, how many ads would you be running on that? Are you running several or just a few different ads?
I would say on average, it's probably between 5 to 10 different ads to start with. So we do the exact match ads, the phrase ads, the broad match. We do auto ads. We do product ASIN. We do video ads. And then I think we might do some display ads. I'm still not the one running the ads. It's my ads manager, but I am getting more heavily involved myself now, aiming to see, okay, is there some patterns we can pick up in what we're doing with the help of AI, and see if there's something we can scale further, some things we can reduce, and so on and so forth. So I think that's one big change I'm making as well with the ads is I want to be more hands-on now, because I have this helper that helps me to find these patterns, which doesn't really require my time. All I need to do is enter the data or give it access to the data, and then it can help me to make decisions.
And also going on to, I know you were talking about email lists earlier. That's kind of a part of your strategy as well. How can somebody kind of build an email list from the start and trying to maintain and continue to develop that email list too?
The readers who will be most valuable on your email list will be the ones that have come from your books, because they have already bought from you. They know, like, and trust you most likely. So if you can capture email lists from the books themselves, I would say that's the first thing. So offering something for free that would support the book. For example, let's say it's a book summary, it's maybe some worksheets, something they can print out, which will assist them in solving whatever problem they want to solve with the book. And then after that, it's about nurturing the email list, saying, hey, I got this new book. Maybe you send out advanced review copies. So you say, hey, I got this next book that we're planning to launch. Would you like to read it for free? Here's an advanced review copy. And then after 1 week, you follow up, and then you can have reviews on your books at launch. So that is something that helps. And also, you can separate the lists. So you can have one main list, one arc list. This is when the list becomes a little bit bigger. But then you can have one part of the list which aims to drive sales. So when the book is new, maybe you have it at a reduced price. You say, hey, you can now get my book for 30% off, and that will help to rank your book better on Amazon. It will kickstart the book. But besides that, in terms of growing the email list, what I find is using Facebook ads have been very helpful to really get the quantity of people on the list, because just the books alone, it takes a while. So the Facebook ads leads that you get won't be as how do you say, useful, or not converting as much, but they will still convert, and it will still improve and increase your brand awareness and the results you get.
Okay. And is that something that's easy to do for publishers that you definitely recommend Facebook ads?
It depends on the niche and what you need to pay for each lead, but I know that I was getting email lists for as low as $1 per email, so that was worth it. And it's an investment as well, because once you have an email list of a couple thousand, getting reviews, that problem is pretty much solved at that point. So it depends on what your objective is. And if you're thinking long term, you have a big series of books planned for this brand, then definitely it could be worth it. But if you're paying $10 for one email, then maybe the niche that you're running the ads for on Facebook isn't really optimal.
So I just wanted to go back on to what you previously talked about early on about kind of AI and how that's kind of affected the publishing industry a lot. How are you currently using it in your workflow? And I think you previously mentioned about your team as well. So how has that kind of affected your team?
In terms of my workflow, I've implemented it primarily in the descriptions and AI, so aiming to optimize much more and finding patterns in existing descriptions, so competitors' descriptions, finding, okay, what are they doing well? How are they opening the description with the headline, the hook? Is there something we can implement while still staying true to what is within my book? So that's one thing you have to be careful with when you're using AI, not to have it just create the optimal description, but it has nothing to do with your book. So it must always direct it to ensure that it aligns with what is within your book. And then in terms of keyword selection, it can help if you use Cowork. It can go on to, for example, Helium 10. It can do the grabbing of the keywords for you. So it helps speed up what I did manually before, but you still want to double check it. My cover designer uses AI in terms of my manager, my editor. I also have them use AI to fact check, for example, for the editor, and for the manager. She's also now starting to use Claude more and more. And I think that is helping. Also in terms of formatting, if you're giving away bonuses, you can now easily make them look very nice simply by using AI. So I think it helps to improve the quality, and it also helps us to get more things done. But the AI isn't magic. It's very important that you have the knowledge, that you steer it correctly, and that is what will give you the best results.
Okay. And now, are there any other AI tools that you would recommend?
Mm, my designer uses Sora, Ideogram. I would say Claude. I used to use ChatGPT a lot, but now it's 90% Claude. So Claude Cowork, if you can figure out Claude code, that is very helpful. But those are the main tools. I'm trying this week a little bit with Perplexity Computer. Haven't found the use case for it yet, but I think in a couple of months I'll have a more definite answer.
Thank you for sharing that. And in terms of the next kind of years within KDP, where would you kind of see the biggest opportunity coming?
I think a big opportunity for many publishers is international markets. So maybe the US market will get more and more saturated, but what about the German market, the French market, the Spanish market, the Italian market? And also perhaps you can launch books in Canada and UK with more heavily in terms of ads as well, and you can see success there. I know you've seen great success in UK, for example. So I think thinking like that and realizing that they are a little bit behind usually the other markets can help us. The German market is high in terms of quality, I would say, but I would say you still have a lot of opportunities in these markets. And I had many publishers that are, for example, they speak French fluently. So in that regard, I would recommend them to do research on, for example, Amazon.fr and see, is there potential? Of course, the BSR, you must translate it because it's not the same as on the US market, but the Kindle sales calculator by Kindlepreneur, you can easily get that translation of what does the BSR mean in different markets. I think seasonal books is something that has potential as well, something I haven't really put a lot of attention until this year. I would say I'm going to be more focused on seasonal books. And also TikTok Shop is something I will hopefully have a report on in a couple of months. That's something I'm looking into more heavily. And I think thinking about, okay, AI, that will help people to produce more books, but also a lot of mediocre books will enter the market. So I think the real winners will be the professionals who think in terms of systems, using it to produce higher quality, not just necessarily more. So really making sure that the books you do publish win. I think that's the future. To not produce more, even though you can, but rather focus on the books that will have the biggest impact, and pouring more resources into those books. For example, maybe instead of having two books and splitting the ads budget, maybe you put all of it into one book. And yeah, so I think those are the main things.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all the points you shared. I think even on international markets, that's something that I've kind of got into over the past year or two. I think Germany is definitely a gem of a market that I've been able to tap into. I think I was able to rank a book within 5,000 BSR within about a month anyway. So there's huge potential. And even what I would spend compared to the US market was kind of a fraction on that. So definitely, I always recommend people look outside the US market as well. There's, Amazon is a worldwide business, so definitely look outside of just the US market alone.
Yeah.
So next point there that I wanted us to kind of discuss a little bit more is that you have been doing Amazon KDP for roughly 10 years now. Obviously, you've seen a lot of, huge success throughout it. But what separates you from, most other publishers? Why have you been able to, just see huge success and kind of just keep on growing and compounding in that sense? I'd love to hear a little bit more on that.
I think in my case, it's simply that I've been sticking with publishing. I think a lot of publishers, after a couple of years, they get bored and they see another shiny object. Luckily, in my journey, I had, after 6 months, I did exactly that. I hit a roadblock and I strayed for 6 months. I did other business venture, didn't see any success. And after that, I said, I will get published in the work or go under in the process. And just that commitment and staying true to that commitment of staying with publishing, I think allows you to grow much more, because then you don't have these other opportunities. You can do a social media agency, you can do a affiliate marketing or whatever it is. So when you are focused on solving the problem within publishing, which it's very simple if you think about it. We produce books that people want to buy. And how do we do that? We do that by doing niche research, but then there are levels into everything that you're doing. So the niches, that you have different levels within the niches. So if you go for really low BSR books, whatever you do after that will require a completely different skill set or a completely different commitment. So if you're aiming to compete with books that have below 10,000 BSR, then the title must be on point, the subtitle, the description, the A+, maybe you have influencer reviews, video reviews, image reviews, and the reviews themselves, the quality of the reviews, not just the quantity, and things like that. So I would say when you commit to publishing fully and you aim to become a master at the craft and everything within it, doesn't mean that you need to do everything yourself. For example, the cover designer, the cover designs, if you're not a great designer, hire someone else to do it. But now with AI, as long as you're able to judge the designs, you can still get a long way, I would say. So I think that's the biggest difference. It's not that I'm smarter or anything like that. It's simply that I committed to publishing, and this is what I do, and I aim to find what can improve my business each year. So constant improvement.
And that's good to really hear also. But in terms of obviously yourself going for, those 10 years, I also want to know, how are you able to, keep your account safe as well? We've seen, a lot of terminations, a lot of, challenges coming to KDP, printing costs, changes and things like that. How are you able to keep your account safe?
That's a great question. And full transparency, my account was terminated in 2022. Luckily, it was because of a technical error. I was able to get it back, but it was very, very close to me not being able to get it back. I emailed 5 times. They said, sorry, we're not going to be able to answer more on this. We have made our decisions. Your account will remain closed. But luckily, there was a way around it. So I think once something happens, aim to stay consistent in terms of aiming to get to a real human, which is a huge challenge with KDP, and hopefully it's something that will be fixed in the future. For example, now we have a lot of, in my opinion, unfair terminations related to reviews. I have gotten books blocked because of this accusation of review manipulation, where it's 100% organic reviews. They come from the email list, and it's not by any review sites or anything like that, but it's simply because the reviews have been posted during free promotion. This is the connection that we've seen, that we have as a theory at least. So people have been manipulating reviews during free promotion, and thus KDP has seen this pattern, and now they're punishing everyone that gets maybe an increase of reviews during free promotion, and sometimes they block the books. And doesn't matter what I tried to explain to them, it's just the same answer. So also accepting that this sometimes happens, and when it happens, we aim to get to a human, which is not always the easiest thing. But in terms of safeguarding, otherwise, it's just doing the best you can in terms of avoiding trademark, avoiding copyright, avoiding misleading. And that's extra important if you're using AI, for example, to optimize the descriptions, like I mentioned earlier. Ensure that what you're mentioning in your A+ content, your descriptions, is actually accurate. And then the topics you choose, nothing related to anything that could be a sensitive topic, and things like that. So I think those are the main things in terms of safeguarding. You had a second part of the question. What was that?
I think you actually covered it. You covered it pretty well. That's really good information, because a lot of people like to say how much they're making, but there's also that side as well of obviously keeping your account safe, which provided so many helpful tips for people there as well. The next question I want to know from you is, how have you kind of expanded beyond KDP, and can you tell us a little bit more about DP as well?
Absolutely. So in terms of expansion beyond KDP. And for my main brand, I have a product that I offer as well. Now, the success rate of that one isn't super big. It's a couple of thousand a month, but that is something that you can do if you have a book or a book series or a brand that is doing well. Is there's some other thing you can offer that can provide more value that you can charge more for. So that is one way to diversify your income. Of course, we have other platforms. We have Ingram Spark. We have Find Your Way Voices, or now it's called In Audio. If you live in the UK, Canada, or US, I would highly encourage you to use ACX to publish the audiobooks. And so I think you can diversify your books in that way. If you've got access to TikTok, you've been publishing for a while, TikTok Shop could be something that is worth looking into. In terms of DP, I would say, yes, it generates income, but that's not the focus. Compared to publishing, it's very low. So the main benefit of KDP for me is that I get to learn from other members as well. And it also keeps me motivated. It keeps me sharp and in the game because, like I said, it's easy for anyone doing publishing because it's such a repetitive process. It is a very linear. It can be a little bit repetitive, a little bit boring sometimes to get sidetracked and get shiny objects in them and think that you can get faster results somewhere else, which in some cases might be true. But at the same time, we're building a very stable business. So I think staying within publishing, that's usually, if you have something that's working, that's the best move. So I think DP is great in that regard to keep us motivated, to see the success, to see what's working for other publishers. Some of them are working heavily in different markets. So we have a lot of German publishers inside DP. We get to understand what is working there, the Spanish market, and also anything related to AI. We're quick on it. We talk about it inside the group. If there's something that's working well for someone, we share it, because the idea is that if we are helping each other, if I'm helping you, then you will help me. And that is leveraging the mastermind effect, which I think it was Napoleon Hill that wrote about it, is that 2 minds or more, it's much more powerful than just one mind alone. So when you connect different minds and you're all working towards the same goal, it's incredible the insights you get and the results you can get as well, which we've seen a lot from inside DP.
Okay. And can you tell me a bit more about a few kind of standout success stories as well within DP?
Yes. So we have on the channel, I've interviewed a few. We have, for example, Andre. He made 100K in less than 2 years of starting in 1 month. So I think he's averaging, I'm not sure now, but it's over 30K, maybe 40K. And I believe his profit was 70K in that month where he made 100K, above 70K. Ian made 100K in a month last year in 2025, and it was less than 3 years of starting. Tim made also over 50K in a month. I think his profit margins were also around 50%, less than 8 months of starting. And Adam was also a DP member who started, I believe, the beginning of 2025 or late 2024. So in about a year, he made 28K in a month of starting. And we have some publishers, I can't take credit for them because they joined, I would say, in the fall. But we have some publishers who are doing, one that is doing over 300K in a month. And I think regularly he's profiting at least 100K a month. And we have several publishers making over 100K a month inside DP. So I would say it's very high level in terms of results. But of course, these are not average results. We have many publishers who are doing a few $1,000 a month as well, and some who are just starting out. But I think it provides a good foundation in that regard.
I think that's amazing. I think just hearing those numbers, being around in an environment like that would really kind of cause you to push yourself and to, hopefully strive to, achieve similar results. But I think it's a fantastic thing that you've been able to create there. And can you tell us a little bit more about the London DP event? What can people look forward to?
Yeah, so we have had 2 events so far, 2 driven publishers events, one in Barcelona, which you attended, and then one in Las Vegas as well. And now we're doing an even bigger event in London. So we aim to have one in Europe, one in the US every year. And I would say it's a room of some publishers who are just starting out, but then it's 5 figures, 6 figures, or 7-figure publishers. And we have presentations by, for example, me, by Andre, by Tim, by Gerald on ads and different topics. We will have TikTok shop. I think maybe you've heard of Dave and Valentino. They're making at least 5 to 10K in profit every day from TikTok shop. So they'll be coming and sharing what is working for them. So I think that will be interesting. And also you will be there as a roundtable speaker as well, which will be amazing. And we have dinner, we have lunch, or for the with VIPs, we have dinners. For all attendees, we have lunch included. So we will get to connect with each other during the breaks and talk strategies, and also people can tell their specific problems during these conversations or in the workshop sessions we have. So the feedback and the advice that is given is very specific. I would say the biggest shift to attend or change compared to attending, for example, live Zoom calls, is that when you meet people in person, what I've noticed is that people are much more open. They're sharing their books, they're sharing their exact strategies. Everyone wants to provide value, and it's an amazing environment to be in. And you really unlock the full power of the mastermind effect. And I was at an event back in 2019, and that was also when I met Gerald for the first time. And then a couple of years later, we worked together. So you also make these connections that can stay for years. And I remember leaving that event really motivated, having 2 new things that I was testing out that made a huge difference. And simply the connection with other people who are doing the same thing that you're doing. I think that's massive, because as you know, it's very hard to find publishers in your immediate surroundings. So in that regard, we are a little bit alone. We don't have colleagues, but here we bring everyone together, and we get to talk about what we do for a living, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, and I can definitely vouch for that. The Barcelona event, that was absolutely outstanding, just to be around so many high-level publishers, and many that I still keep in contact with today. Just the knowledge I was able to gain, the ideas, I think is really unique. There's nothing really like this out there. So I definitely encourage anyone who's listening to attend. And what I'll do is I'll leave a link in the description. So make sure you check it out. And I think we'll both love to see you there as well. And finally, what I would say in under probably 30 seconds or a minute, if you're able to just speak to the Peter maybe from 10 years ago that was just starting out, what advice would you give to him?
That's a great question. The advice I would give, if it was Peter 10 years in today's environment, I would say leverage AI, really aim to master AI. And you don't need to learn all the technical things, just learn how to work with AI in terms of how to give it the correct instructions for, okay, for example, one insight that I've gotten is when you train an employee, when you train a freelancer, you don't just give them a bunch of things you want done and then a bunch of data and then it goes and fix it perfectly. No, you take one step at a time, you validate, okay, it did it perfectly. Now you can move on to the next step. And it's the same thing with the AI. You want to work with it like you're working with a human, and you double check it. And then once it's done the task correctly, because maybe it didn't do it correctly the first time, then you can start to save it as a workflow once you have all the steps done correctly. So I would say that would be the biggest shift if it was today. So not to rely so much on freelancers, but more so master AI. I would still use freelancers, experts, because I think that's a leverage that you can benefit from. And in terms of that, otherwise, stay in the game, stay focused, and stay motivated. Listen to interviews like this, other success interviews, and that will keep you motivated. And aim to reduce the dopamine you receive from other sources, to remove distractions. And if you get validation that this is working, then why can't it work on a bigger scale? That's also a big thing, is to realize that publishing itself, you can scale it within publishing, and you don't need to add something extra or add new product, even within publishing. Just focus on a few books, drive more traffic to that book, and you will see greater results, I would say. So that's my advice.
So yeah, thank you for sharing those points in detail. Definitely, I think the world we're in now, everyone should be definitely using AI in every single part of their business. It just helps out so much. I've used so many tools that have helped me to be able to get the results. So yeah, I definitely agree with all that you're saying. But thank you for your time, Peter. It's been a pleasure speaking with you again and having you here. We look forward to seeing you at London DPE. It'll be another great event that we look forward to. Any final words?
Thank you for having me. It's been great, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in London again. I know the TikTok presentation you did in Barcelona was very much appreciated, so I'm looking forward to having you there and connecting with all the publishers and hopefully some of the viewers here as well.
Well, thank you. Thanks a lot. Then you take care, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, see you soon.